Welcome children. Class 8th Metals and Non-Metals. Today we will discuss some important terminology of this chapter and also question answer. Define these terms. Element. What do you mean by element? A substance that can't be broken down into simpler substances by chemical means or by any chemical method. A substance that can't be broken into simpler substance. Such substances are known as element. Examples: hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, iron, copper, gold, calcium, magnesium, all are examples of element. Now we will discuss what do you mean by metals. Metals in general are hard, lustrous, good conductor of heat and electricity. Lustrous means shining. Can be drawn into wires. This property is known as ductility, and beaten into sheets. Metals can be beaten into sheets. This property is known as malleability. So metals are ductile and malleable and have high densities. Examples of metals are silver, aluminum, tin, copper, gold, iron, etc. Non-metals in general, they are not so hard, they are brittle. Brittle means they are converted into powdery mass when they hit by a hammer. And non-lustrous, they are not shining, poor conductor of heat and electricity. Substances or elements are known as non-metals. Metalloids, what do you mean by metalloids? Elements having properties of both metals and non-metals are called metalloids. Means the elements having some properties of metals and some properties of non-metals are called metalloids. Example: arsenic, antimony and germanium. Ore, what do you mean by ore? An ore is a mineral from which a metal can be extracted profitably. Such mineral is known as ore. Gangue, in ore, the useful metallic mineral is mixed with other minerals which are not of much use. They are not of much use. These minerals are called gangue. Means in ore, minerals which are present as impurity are called gangue. Next is noble metals. What do you mean by noble metals? Metals which are not very reactive and occur in free state in nature are called noble metals. These are gold, silver and platinum. They do not react with other metals or non-metals. Metallurgy, what do you mean by metallurgy? The series of processes carried out to extract pure metal from their ore is called metallurgy. Next is malleability. What do you mean by malleability? Metals can be beaten with a hammer into thin sheets. This property is known as malleability. Ductility, metals can be drawn into thin wires. This property is known as ductility. In general, all the metals are malleable and ductile. Gold and silver are most malleable and ductile metals. Gold and silver are most malleable and most ductile metals. Reactivity series of metals. Reactivity series of metals क्या होते हैं बच्चों? An arrangement of metals in decreasing order of reactivity is called reactivity series of metal. It is the series of metals which arrange in the decreasing order of their reactivity. Now displacement reaction. You can also say this reaction replacement reaction. So displacement or replacement reaction is the reaction in which more reactive metal displaces less reactive metal from its salt solution is known as displacement reaction. Examples: when zinc metal reacts with copper sulfate, uh, it is converted into zinc sulfate and copper is displaces from copper sulfate. Another example of this reaction is when iron reacts with copper sulfate, it is converted into ferrous sulfate and copper is displaced from copper sulfate. Copper sulfate is of blue color. When it is formed ferrous sulfate, the color of ferrous sulfate is light green. So blue color of copper sulfate converted into light green color of ferrous sulfate, and copper is displaced by the iron from copper sulfate. Now, what do you mean by alloy? An alloy is a mixture of two or more metals or one or more metals and a non-metal, and usually this non-metal is carbon. Example: brass. Brass, which is called pital in Hindi. Brass is made up of or a mixture of copper and zinc. Also bronze. Bronze is a mixture of copper and tin. So these mixtures of two or more metals are called alloy. Now question number 2, give reasons for the following. First one is aluminum foil are used to wrap food items. So you have to give the reason. Aluminum foils are used to wrap food items because aluminum metal is malleable. Therefore, it can be beaten into thin foils. Second, immersion rods for heating liquids are made up of metallic substances. Metals are good conductor of heat and electricity. Therefore, immersion rods for heating liquids are made up of metallic substances. Third one is copper can't displaces zinc from its salt solution. Answer is, since copper is less reactive than zinc, so it can't displace zinc from its salt solution. Next is sodium and potassium are stored in kerosene. Why they are stored in kerosene? Sodium and potassium are highly reactive metals. They reacts with, this one is THEY. They reacts readily with oxygen present in the air. They readily reacts with oxygen present in the air. That is why they are kept in or they are kept under kerosene to prevent this reaction. Next is aluminum is above iron in the reactivity series. However, its reaction with oxygen and water appears to show that it is less reactive than iron. Explain why it is so. Answer: it appears so because aluminum reacts with oxygen in the air to form aluminum oxide, and a layer of aluminum oxide covered the aluminum, which further act as a protective layer over the pure aluminum. Next is, it has been noticed that silverwares, utensils of silverware becomes black faster today than it did 50 years ago. What is the reason? Answer is, the tarnishing of silver is due to the reaction of the silverware with sulfur compounds in the atmosphere. The reason for the enhancement of the tarnishing is due to an increased rate of pollution that has led to higher amount of sulfur in the atmosphere. Due to higher amount of sulfur or sulfur compounds in the atmosphere, silver wares or silver utensils tarnishes fast. What happens when dilute sulfuric acid is poured on copper sulfate? You have to tell what happens when dilute sulfuric acid is poured on copper plate. Since less reactive metals do not react with acid, so copper will not react with dilute sulfuric acid, thus no reaction take place. You can write a word equation for this. Second, B. Iron nails are placed in the copper sulfate solution. What happens? Iron, being more reactive than copper, displaces copper from copper sulfate solution. Means displacement reaction take place when iron rails are placed in copper sulfate solution. Due to the displacement reaction, the blue color of copper sulfate becomes green color of iron sulfate, and also red-brown decomposition of copper on the iron nail. Word equation is iron plus copper sulfate. It is converted into iron sulfate and copper. It forms iron sulfate and copper. Formula of or symbol of iron is Fe. F capital, E is small. Copper sulfate, chemical formula of copper sulfate is CuSO4. When Fe reacts with CuSO4, it is converted into FeSO4. Ferrous sulfate is formed or iron sulfate is formed and copper displaces. Cu is the symbol of copper and FeSO4 is the formula of ferrous sulfate. Thanks for watching.